What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Forge to Win podcast. Today, I have Nicholas Barely on, and we were just talking beforehand, and one of the things that he said that was just amazing that I'm excited to bring to you guys is, a lot of people have a blueprint and they run plays, but they have the wrong blueprint and they run the wrong plays. And one of the things that Nicholas has spent his time doing, even if I've looked him up before the show and we were introduced by a mutual friend, is the community that you're a part of, and how important that community really is to not just the success of our business, but where we want to go in life. And a lot of times we look up to people that we don't really want to model or emulate, and really we want to connect with, like he has his $1 billion brotherhood. We want to connect with people that are like-minded on the similar journey, and he's really put an amazing community together of what this looks like. So, Nicholas, man, thank you so much for joining us on Forge to Win.
Dude, I appreciate it. I love that you create a space like this. I remember being 60 pounds heavier than I am right now, super embarrassed to even go outside. Like, I would have never taken an opportunity like this. And if it wasn't for someone sharing information with me about how I could change my situation, I would have never changed. So I always honor that. And one thing I say to everyone here is that my life changed in a moment for the negative, which caused me to gain 60 pounds. And then my life also changed for the positive in one moment. I think we all experience these like one moments that are negative, that we're like get punched in the gut and we react to that thing. We never want to do it again. Maybe it was you tried to invest in something before and it didn't work out. And so we take that into everything else. Like, hey, if it can happen for the negative, it probably can happen for the positive too. And that's the type of experiences that we're looking to create today, is those massive breakthroughs. And the only thing that's required from people listening is you actually make it to the very end so we can have those moments, which I appreciate you for creating a platform for that.
Absolutely, man. I think that's so key because, like you said, there's moments that will kind of throw our whole days off, right? One thing happens and your whole day's off. Well, a lot of times in our beliefs and what we think, we almost tell ourselves these bad affirmations where it's like, dude, if you make the decision to change that direction, instead of what if everything goes wrong, what if everything goes right? And all of a sudden you're on that trajectory to changing your life through a small moment that nobody even saw.
100%. There's prayers and faith that people have, and then worry is the prey of disbelief. That's You're praying to the wrong God if you're worrying. It's another form of prayer, and you don't want to be walking around praying that way, because we, in the 3-dimensional realm, we use language to communicate. But if you think about a 4th-dimensional realm, just bigger, you would never need to use words to communicate. Maybe you experience this when you're around someone. You kind of know what they need or what they mean, not based on language, since language is 7%, words are 7% of communication. 7% of communication is words. Everything else can be facial expressions, tonality, and body language. And so there's these ways to pick up on things and project things that if you're feeling like you're not walking in abundance and you're worried about money, you may be saying one thing, but I'm telling you, body language, facial expressions, tonality, it's going to be completely different. And we're going to create those realities. I always like to say that for unsuccessful people, which this is the baseline, people can write this down. 97% of people by the age of 65 are either dead, option one, or dead broke, relying on their friends, family, and government for their main source of income. 97% of people. And that's what most people are doing out there. What I like to do is I like to question those types of things and ask myself, how can I walk in what the 3% of people are doing? And I guarantee you right now, 3%ers are listening to podcasts like this, while 97% of people are just trying to go work harder or wish more. And they say that the most abundant place in the world is the graveyard, because where all the good ideas go, all the dreams that never get fulfilled, all the destinies and callings on people's lives, they all go to the graveyard because everyone's afraid to do it. So appreciate you for having me.
Man, yeah, dude, that's super powerful. Dropping it already. So for the guys who don't know you, unpack for us what you're involved in. What does your business look like? What do you specialize in? What do you do? Right? Like what is Nicholas's life look like right now?
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Well, I'll give them the right now and then kind of how we got here a little bit, so it makes a little bit more sense. But right now, I run a company called the Kings Brotherhood, Advancing God's Businessmen. It's specifically for Christian businessmen that want to get around other Christian men that are also growing companies, since oftentimes for us, the church has failed businessmen. There's not really a good place for them to connect. Ambition and things like this are not very common in the church. Yet these are ambitious businessmen building big businesses. They don't want to compromise in any of those areas. And from my background, the way that I got into that is like, I never grew up in any of that. Like I never went to a church or any of these different things. And I grew up and just wanted to be a professional motocross racer. And my parents broke up when I was 4. By 7, I wrote my first suicide letter because my parents hated each other. And it was only because of me. Like you could see that they would have never talked, but because I was the glue, they had to talk, which made them fight, which made them hate each other. And I was the reason why life sucked. My dad was super strict. And so I went through a lot of like, I didn't really talk a ton before I was 13. Then all of a sudden I hit puberty and I started talking back on accident. I don't know what happened, but that was very confrontational. But at the same time, I realized that I really wanted the approval of my father. Like the biggest thing, I just wanted him to like say that I was doing a good job. So I'd try to do things. And then if I didn't get that, then I would like go the opposite way. And notice that people, they say that babies cry for it, men die for it, and it's called attention. Like people want the recognition. People want to be seen and known, and babies will cry for recognition. And actually, you can teach a kid to cry to get attention if you don't give them attention for doing positive things, because they think, well, if doing something good, if I'm quiet and I'm still and I'm not getting attention from my family, I'm going to scream. And I kind of went into that phase as well. And it led me to a place where my last ditch effort to connect with my dad, I told him my biggest dreams in life. And I told him that I wanted to go after it. And I was 13 years old. And he looked at me and told me that I would never achieve that goal. And I didn't talk to my father for 3.5 years. And that's where I gained 60 pounds, that one moment that changed me for the negative. And then it was just one simple thing. Just so interesting, because we think like transformation needs to be super difficult. What I found is there's 2 different types of people out there. There's people out there that they're motivated to make a difference, but they just don't know the path.
Yeah.
Right. Like for real estate, they're like, if I have the money right here, I'm willing to take the risk, but like I just don't even know how to invest in deals. This was very common like 20 years ago. Right? It was harder to find information. YouTube wasn't ready, like right there. You're not getting smacked by Facebook ads 50 times a day on do this, do that, do this, do that. Whereas now we're in this other phase that's super terrible and a lot harder. And what I like to specialize in, which is people that know what they should be doing to change their situation, but they're not doing it. Like if I were to ask someone right now, the simple form of one of our 4 dimensions that we teach, which is health, if I were to say, what's something that you should be doing right now to be healthier? Most people would know something.
Right.
So I'm like, is the problem that you just don't know what to do, or that you're not doing what you know and you have no clue why the heck you're not doing that? Yeah. And so for me, I was in the phase at the time where I literally didn't know how to lose weight. I didn't know that. You look at someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Here was the 2 differences between a successful person, the 3%, and me. I was the 97%. Like majority of my life, 97%. Like even up to 7 years ago, I was making $20K a year cleaning carpets. Like I was the 97%. I was falling right into the rut, thinking that I was being like making my own decisions when I was really playing the same exact game as the 97%. Arnold Schwarzenegger used to cover up his entire body, and he used to only expose his calves because they were the weakest part of his body. And I thought that was so interesting as a kid who struggled with self-confidence. And the reason I touch on this is because if you struggle with self-confidence or I like call it being conscious of yourself only. Like people, if you're struggling with self-confidence, then that means all you do is think about yourself and how you look and how you feel. Because I experienced this. We'll never put ourselves out there to build the business or the life that we want, have the relationship that we want, because we're scared to be rejected. We're scared people will find out who we are. How do I know this? Is because I used to wear big sweatshirts every single day to cover up the body fat that I had. I used to take Scotch tape and tape down my nipples every single day because I had man boobs. Like, not fun to talk about, but you know, that's just what it was. I didn't know that I like invented the pasty. By the way, I could have been a billionaire. Like I didn't know this. Like I was using Scotch tape. I was way ahead of my time. They were even see-through. So like, woohoo, let's go. And I covered up every bad part of my body. And the difference between him and I was that he knew that if he focused on that area, he could change his situation. And for me, I thought I didn't have the power to change my situation. And for many people, whether it's in their wealth or in their relationship or in their body, like I had, the body's a great place because you don't have to rely on anyone else. For deals, like there's buyers and sellers, there's financing places and all this stuff. There's other moving parts. For relationships, there's definitely two parties. In business, there's two parties. There's people that paying, receiving cash, etc. Yet in your health, it's really just you. So if we can master that, now we can build this confidence with ourselves that we make decisions and we follow through. And I think that's a great place to start. Yet inside this place, I didn't think I could change my situation. And many of us go through life like that. Like we're just going to cover it up.
Right.
We're just going to kind of like let that slide because we're like, this is not fun to show. Like, I don't want to deal with this. And we just leave ourselves there. And I would almost look at it like if inside of Matthew in the Bible, there's a group of 3 guys that get given talents, 10 talents, 5 talents, 1 talent, 2 talents, etc. And one of them, all of them invested them to grow them. And then there was one guy who decided out of fear, which biblically, if you read the Bible, the number 1 commandment said over and over again was do not fear, which I thought like the most said, which I thought was so interesting. This guy, out of fear of losing it all, buries it in the sand. I can't change the situation. I don't know what to do. So because of that, I'm going to go into inaction. I'm going to bury it in the sand. And what was so interesting about all of that is that that person's talent or money was actually given to the guy who multiplied his. And he was called wicked and slothful, like wicked, bad, terrible. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, isn't this what we see in the world, that if you distributed the wealth equally amongst the world right now, they say it'd probably take about 4 years until all the money's back in the same hands.
Right.
So it shows me that it's actually the person that you become, the knowledge base that you have, the education that you have, the skill sets you have, that is what changes your situation. Not necessarily the wealth, because if we equally distribute it, it just go back to the same hand. So how do you become the person where all the wealth goes to?
Yeah. Well, and in your story, in that how to become that person, I think jumping into you, how did you go and what was that moment like? Right now you're at this spot where you're helping other guys that are there.
Yep.
And trying to essentially recreate themselves, right? Like, hey, you don't have to be like, you can go to that next level. You can take these small decisions that have massive changes, and you're walking them through that. So for you, what was that pivot point that you're like, you know what, I have to build that confidence in me? What happened? Like, what was that about?
Yeah, it's a great question. So everything that I've done has consisted of other people, great mentors, great community. The first aspect was that guy who at my school one day, he shares with me a plan. I said that I didn't have a plan to lose weight, so I didn't think I could change my situation. This kid at my school, I'm like senior in high school, comes up to me and goes, he's eating fruit. And realize like this is scary. Put yourself in my shoes and also get in your shoes. Maybe people haven't reached out to your company for help with real estate and education because it's vulnerable. It means you don't know something and you're looking for something, and that's scary. So I asked him, being fat, I go, why'd you bring that? And he was like, oh, I'm a boxer. I need to weigh in at the correct weight. And my trainer put me on this meal plan so I could be a high performer and weigh at a correct weight. And something clicked in me. I was like, wow, I could make this not just about weight loss. I could make this about performance. Like that caught my attention. I'm like, that's better. Like the other one's kind of lame, but like performance. And then I ended up losing 60 pounds in 6 months and helped me reconnect with my father and all these people, because I was like ashamed of who I was and what I was going through. But I still saw that there was something missing. And I actually ended up meeting my now wife. We've been married 10 years. We got married in 2018. We actually went to ministry school for 2 years together, and we went to 14 different countries serving the poor. For me, like I said, I never went to a church, went to something. I was 18 years old, had this radical encounter myself, and I just felt like a different person. I was like, I want to serve the world. I want to serve these people. So I'm going to 14 different countries, and then all of a sudden I feel like I need to go into business world. So now I'm married. I got my health, right? I like grew in this area. I invested in my health over that next year. I got a trainer and a nutritionist, and it was my number one investment because I was like, man, I got all this confidence. I'm not scared to put myself out there anymore. I'm mastering this self-discipline. And then all of a sudden I have this wife and I'm like, everything's kind of coming my way. And then I realized really quickly I'd never had a job before and I didn't have a business. And I was failing in this other area that we call in the 4-dimensional businessman is you have your health. You can't outsource as a man.
Yep.
Like you can get help. Like I ran a health company. You could get plans and meal prep and cooks and chefs, and you can get a workout plan and you can get workout equipment, but no one's going to move your body for you and no one's going to eat for you. No one's going to slap your Reese's cup out of your hand when you're in bed. You know, when you pull the sheets off and there's wrappers that fly everywhere. Like, that was me.
Yeah.
So I was like, if that's not something I can outsource as a man, then I should probably get good at it. Like, I look at a business, and a business to make money needs to lead gen, lead nurture, have a conversion event, meaning sales process, a deliverable after people buy, an ability to retain and upsell and resell clients.
Yeah.
That's required. So I looked in my life as a man, and I was like, why do I feel so off balance? Like, I've got everything. I got my health now, and I'm like, I'm still lacking. I got a wife, and I'm like, I can't provide. Like, I have no, like, what am I supposed to do? And now I dive into the business realm, and then all of a sudden I'd be like out of shape, feeling like I'm neglecting myself. And then my wife would feel neglected. I'm like, don't you know why I'm doing this? Like, if I don't do this, then we don't eat. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I really sat down and came up at first with the 3-dimensional businessman, then 4-dimensional businessman. It's like, these are the areas that we cannot outsource. And my goal at that time was like, I'm going to master this. I'm going to put something in place where my priorities are there to invest in my relationship with my wife, to invest in my health, to invest in the business that I'm creating. And man, I flopped that first business as a newly married guy. I had no resume, never went to college, barely graduated high school. So there's no way I was going to go get a job. I crawled to my father, who owned a carpet cleaning business, and I cleaned carpets for 2.5 years. And we invested every dollar in education. Like as investors, personal education, not like schooling.
Yeah.
Here's the deal is like my friend, I have a friend named Alex Tramosi, and he talks about the S and Me 500. I love it. Like, instead of S&P, like S and Me. And really, as an investor, there's certain investments that supersede anything else. And an investor is someone who swipes a card, writes a check. Like, that qualifies someone as an investor. They're investing in something, right? That's required. That's how you invest.
Yeah.
And I looked at, like, what are the highest yielding investments? And number one will be you. Number two will be your own company. And then there's everything else outside of that. Yet, while most people, they'll easily go buy some AT&T or Tesla stock and invest in someone else's company and not invest in themselves, their own skill set, or their own company that they're building. Like, they have more faith in someone else's company having a great trajectory than even themselves.
Do you think that's because they don't want to they don't ask themselves, they don't look in and say, I believe in me? Do you think that's they want to outsource that and they just don't want to think about it? Like, where's that kind of come to Jesus moment where it's like, I'm going to take this money and put it in me? Man, Nicholas, I've seen people who will spend $2,000 on a computer or a TV, right? But they have a hard time spending $50 on 2 books, right? To go in that. Where's that? I mean, in your experience dealing with people who are going through this transformation, is there a prerequisite they have to go through? Is it like they have to come to the end of themselves? I mean, what is that? At what point is that switch?
Yeah, well, I can tell you what mine was, and maybe touch on some of the other guys, because I had the same problem. Now, like, I just wire transferred 45 grand just to be in a higher level group around really high level individuals so that I can grow. And I look at that now and I'm like, bro, this is amazing, because I understand it. But there was one point when I was cleaning these carpets, it really got to this point where I had mentors. I'd kind of like gone through some education and courses, but I was like secluded. I was all alone. And like, if you look even biblically, it's so funny. God says like everything's good, right? It's like created the earth and it was good, and the animals and it was good, and it was all good. And then it was like, uh-oh, this ain't good. And the first thing that wasn't good was for man to be alone. And like, people think of that inside of relationship sense, but also in community sense, is that community, if done right, will make you not lonely, but it'll actually make you more fruitful. Like, the guys, 2 friends that wrote Narnia and The Hobbit, they were actually best friends. And it was through their relationship of building their relationship together that leveled each other up till they both built these insane platforms that became some of the largest movies and largest books ever. And it was because together they were not only not lonely, like, they became more fruitful. And so I think that one of the biggest things that I went through is I'm sitting there dumping my carpet cleaning van. And at this point, my father had been in an accident, a motorcycle accident. I was running the company for 14 months. My wife gets invited to an event in Vegas. Of course, she goes to this event and they pitch this super high ticket product, which I like have a company that consults on this now. So it's like, I'm all about it. But at the time I had no clue. She calls me, she goes, "It's this thing. It's so amazing. We need to do it, but they won't let me buy because we're so broke." Like, I'm literally at this point, I was like living off a credit card for groceries, working to pay everything for cash, like rent and car payment and things that I couldn't pay on a credit card. Just projecting out like, holy, like I sold everything out of my house to the point where I had no lights even. Like I had a dark house with like all I had was a free sofa and I actually sold that. I picked it up on Craigslist for free. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, but I'm sitting there in my carpet cleaning van. And I'm like, if I keep going this way, like how is life going to be different? Like I'm going to pay off like $200 in debt every month if I had a $37 per week food budget and a $25 per week split between my wife and I eating out budget. I was like, I'm just going to be like all these 97%. And so we went all in, man. My wife swiped our credit card, maxed the entire thing out to get around really, really good people. And I think that one of the biggest things that I've noticed culturally through creating a brotherhood, like I've created this brotherhood of guys that run these multi 7-figure companies now. Yet when I look at it, I realize that even gangs, think of gangs, to be accepted in a community of gang members, you may have to steal, kill, destroy, rob. This is how you get like initiated and you get attention. Well, I got into a room of people where you get attention for giving money away. I was in this room one time and it was so interesting because even if it was a negative motivation to get attention, I don't know if it's necessarily negative, but I kind of felt like it was a little bit negative. I was like, I just want attention. I want to be recognized. So I want to give money so I can get recognized in this group. I was like, oh my gosh, if I get a community of people that their standard of what you get recognized in changes, I'm going to start conforming to that to build relationships in this community. So I started giving more money away than I ever had before. And I started getting recognition. I was like, my gosh, like what happens if I get around super high level people that are performing in their health, in their relationships, in their businesses, and the standard in which they live and the things that you get credit and praise for are things that cause positive things to happen in our life. And really, if you take it back to statistics, right now, every person listening is going to be plus or minus 10% of their current friend group's income, divorce percentage, relationship status, health, all of it. Unless you just changed your friend group, you're going to be plus or minus 10%. And when I look at my life, when I first started out in business, I thought if you made 10 grand a month, you were like a god. I was like, I need to get your autograph. Literally. Like I thought I need to take a picture with them. And I would make like $1,000 to $3,000 a month in the business. Well, I caught myself years later. I met this guy who never ate breakfast until he made $10,000 in the day so far, and then he'd eat breakfast. So I was like, you know what? I believe for that. I tried it for 3 days. I didn't eat for 3 days straight. And I was like, maybe I need to pull back my goal a little bit. But our company was making $1,000 to $3,000 a day. And I was like, weird. Like my environment expectation is up leveled, but like the percentage in which I'm worse than them is still the same. I was like, I wonder if I keep up leveling the people I'm around, my expectation changed. And I saw this in sports as well. I golfed for about 15 months. I golfed about 125. Like that's not good. High score is not good for golf. And I realized that there was guys that had great capacity out there on the golf course that they would improve up to a certain point and then they'd play with their buddies forever and only shoot 87.
Yeah.
And I golfed with a pro golfer every week for like literally 15 months straight. I hit 220 golf balls every day. And by the end of that, I was having games where I was shooting in the 70s. And I realized that when I went on the course with a bunch of pro golfers, not only could they give me insights on my swing and my gameplay from their perspective, my expectation to shoot well was so high because that's all that I saw. I didn't know you were supposed to shoot in the 80s or 90s. I thought this is how you play the game of golf. And I've just surrounded myself with people like that. And the last little piece I'll throw in there, because I know a lot of people like to study the 97% to try to figure out what they shouldn't do. They should be listening to people like you and listen to podcasts like this of people that are actually doing it. Because if you look at who studies counterfeit money, like people that study counterfeit money or can spot counterfeit money, one of the commonalities I always try to hold true is people would think that people that know counterfeit money or in that sector study all the different forms, the paper, the ink, what's off, etc., they actually spend all day getting to know real money. Because if you know real money and the real thing well enough, it's easy to spot a fake. So if you focus on in your life, what type of positive outcomes do you want? What type of self-talk do you want to have? What type of morning routine do you want to have? What type of people do you want to be around? What do successful people do? You don't have to worry about spotting all of your bad habits or navel gazing or going into your past or all these different things, because it's easy to spot when those are in misalignment if you know the truth well enough. It's easy
So
to spot a fake.
is that where it comes in? Because, like, for instance, for my life, one of the things that I feel like has been something I've done really well is being able to see someone who has a model, taking that model and implementing that model, right? And then one of my rules that I like to tell people is, dude, run the model until you're performing at or above the person you take it, and then start tweaking. Don't be cute. Just run the model, right? Change it a little bit, but run the model in your own way. And then once you're running that model, then you can say, okay, like Sam Walton, you can go out and say, hey, what's something else that's a good nugget? Take that, add it to the mix. Grab this nugget, add it to the mix. Essentially, that's kind of what you're saying. Instead of going out and saying, what are all the things that people are doing wrong? Let me try to adjust and figure it out. It's no, go study what's actually working. Implement that, that strategy, that formula, even the way you take care of your health. Like what you said with your health is get the plan from someone who's successful and then implement it until you start seeing some results. And then once you plateau, then look for other models that you can take from and gradually add it to yourself. Would you say that is accurate or not really?
100%. So there's two fears that every man goes through. The first one is I'm not going to make it. I'll never make it.
Yep.
And that's that fear of like, you just never have your breakthrough. Many of the people that are listening to podcasts like this, like you either have or you are going to have your breakthrough, because it's just what happens if you do the right things. The second biggest fear that's way harder is that you're going to lose it all. You're going to go backwards. Like it was a fraud. It was, you got lucky. That flip you did was easy, or that investment property or whatever it is. And that causes people to shrink backwards and really live in fear. Now with what you're talking about, plans, simple plans, executing on what works, 100%. But here's the fear that people run through. And if we can spot it, then we can make a decision to do something different, because your thoughts aren't who you are, right? Like you can think one thing, it doesn't matter. You can take that thought and go, hey, I know that that's not me. That's just a thought. I'm okay having that thought, but that's not my identity and who I am. So if I can catch that, I can think something different. What I've noticed is that if people execute on a proven plan and fail, they're afraid that that'll mean that they're actually a failure. If they execute on a plan that is theirs and it's like not the best way to do it, if they fail, they can always blame the plan because they never did the proven step. And so it's a subconscious problem that people go through where literally there's health plans out there, health professionals, that people will just not follow the simple basic steps that they teach. And they keep trying to just like piece together little things from each one because they're so afraid like this won't work for me. It won't work in my situation. It won't work in my current environment. And 100%, like if you want to have success, it's going to be through the boring work of doing what's proven. And if you're out there reinventing the wheel, like I guarantee you there's people out there that are way smarter, been in it way longer. And if they're not doing it, it's probably because it doesn't work. Right? Like if I want to launch a business, like I'm going to go and look at someone who's spent like $100 million in that business and figure out where they're at right now, and not go through the process of making all the same mistakes that they did. If I want to do it to my health, if I want to do it to my relationship, there are proven things out there that work. And it's overcoming that fear of like, if I do this thing that's proven and worked for someone else, if it fails for me, then that means I'm an ultimate failure, because it just affirms what I already believe about myself, which is that I am a failure. Yeah. And if you can catch that and realize that, hey, right now you're struggling with believing in yourself, catch that and start making a different decision. Start telling yourself that you believe in yourself. Start making decisions every day, maybe in a health sense, to start building trust with yourself again. You know, people I work with that have great companies. Think about every person that you know, every small business out there in the world, even. At some point, they had no business and it was doing nothing. And then usually people don't incrementally grow, like small percentages. People have huge ascensions and then they plateau and then huge ascensions again. Like I look at business owners that are small businesses, and a lot of times they grow to like 400K or 200K a year, and then they sit there for like 30 years. So they explode. Boom. They grow the business, they launch it, they grow to 200K a year, 400K a year, and then they just literally have no clue how to grow from there. And it's because they have the capacity to grow, but they haven't unlocked a new capacity to ascend to that next level. And I truly believe for every single person out there, it's how do we put ourselves in an environment where we can not get stuck, where our business will only grow of the measure of which we grow, right? Like your business will only grow as much as you grow. So how can we build trust with ourselves? I always say start with health, something simple, maybe something with hydration that you do every day, something that you can track, right? This is something that we do with all of our guys is you have a goal. Everyone should have a goal of where you're trying to get to. If we say it in a health sense, it's very awesome because everyone understands it. Let's say I want to lose 20 pounds or I want to get a six pack. Those are goals.
Yep.
You can't go into the gym and be like, I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to get a six pack. Rah, rah. Like, let's go. Oh, like, yes. You can't do it by just buying plans either. What you want to do is you want to go to an expert that knows how to do that and put together a plan so that you can just take action. And a lot of times in entrepreneurs' worlds, their actions are actually outcome oriented. So it's like, I want to lose 20 pounds. So every day that they don't lose weight, they're upset. What really they should do is they should put together a plan that they can do every day and high five themselves if they do the plan, because it's the plan executed well that gets them the result. They're focused on the actual process rather than the outcome. And
Yeah.
then have an expert like yourself who could see, are we making progress towards that goal or do we need to shift the plan? Because ultimately it's the things we do. Now, in most people's minds, they tell themselves, I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow, or I'm going to eat this way, or I'm going to follow through on this thing. And then they don't do it. And then guess what they do when they go say, I'm going to go invest in real estate? Their mind's going, BS.
Yeah.
You're full of crap, bro. You can't even follow through on the water you said you were going to drink yesterday. Your subconscious mind will untangle everything because your subconscious mind doesn't trust even what you're saying. And the way that we could start over is by building little habits where we can create trust with ourselves again, so that when it comes to executing on the plan, we become the people that can actually carry out the plan and build the business and handle the things that are going on. And the first step is building trust with yourself again.
Nicholas, that's so powerful. Guys, literally go back and rewind and watch what he just said, because that's something that even for me, right? There is an aspect where I exploded, right? I started real estate. I exploded. I went off by myself and I sold part of my business. I exploded again. But then I transitioned and all of a sudden that fear set in, just like what you were saying. And I wasn't putting myself in different rooms. And then all of a sudden I'm like, can I do this again? Like what's going on? And you gradually dwindle down. And dude, hitting the nail on the head. I've seen people who did so amazing for 2 or 3 years that are no longer in real estate simply because one thing happened and then another thing happened and then another thing happened. And then all of a sudden they gained 25 pounds. And then all of a sudden they just stopped doing the work. And internally, there's that thought in our heads that I can't really do this. Oh, I said I was going to do that and I fell through. All that. And you just gave the roadmap, bro, to this is how you rebuild that confidence. So guys, go back and watch that. You know, if people wanted to learn a little bit more about that process, because I think that is, I know for me and the recreation of myself, and I've probably gone through, I can think of 3 solid recreations, maybe a couple little ones, that those are the moments that change the direction until I achieve whatever that plateau is. And then I have to do it again. So if you were to say, hey guys, go check this out. Like if you're struggling with this, do 1, 2, and 3, or get this book, or do you have something you could recommend?
Yeah, I go a little bit more in depth on this with a framework that everyone can follow with simple action items, because I'm really big that most people, they focus on the hardest action items ever that ruin the momentum of everything else. In health and fitness, that would be going to the gym. It was like, I want to go to the gym. I'm like, bro, did you know that it's like the last part of the entire equation, and even people that live longer, like they walk. Like, so breath, if you hold your breath for like 5 minutes right now, you're going to die. So if it can negatively impact you quickly, then it can also positively impact you. So I have simple breathwork things that boom, you can knock them out and you're done. It's not go to the gym. Hydration, certain things you could do there. If you don't drink water for a few days, you die. So if it can change you negatively, it could also optimize you. So small little things that can just massively get you in momentum. And so actually, I talked to you beforehand. I have a few physical copies here at my house. If someone follows me on Instagram, Nicholas Bailey, sends me a quick message, I'm happy to ship that out for free. Literally, all I need is an address. I'm going to pay for the book, shipping for everyone. If we run out of those copies, I have Nicholas Bailey, my name, .com/ebook. And it's the digital version that you can instantly get access to that walks through that entire framework, as well as many things that we kind of touched on here. Because I get excited. I'm like, I have so many frameworks I teach our guys over the years and mostly out of my own life. And one of the ones that, so they can go grab that nicholasbailey.com/ebook and get that book for free. Like there's like 13,000 copies in people's hands. Absolutely phenomenal. And again, I invest like 300K in mentors up to that point to learn what I learned that went into that book. So
this reminds me. So I was on the beach in Ireland. Okay. This was 3 years ago. And I'm walking up the beach and me and my wife, no, it was 2 years ago. It was during COVID. We went to Ireland for 4 months and we lived over there for various reasons. But I'm walking up the beach. It's November and this girl runs by me. And she runs by. I walk down. I turn around. It's freezing outside. There's 5-foot waves coming off the water. And I see her like way in the distance. She strips down and she jumps into the water and gets smashed with this wave. And she stands up and she gets smashed with the wave again. And I'm like, what the heck is this person doing? Right? It's freezing outside. I'm bundled up. It's cold. And so I turn around. I walk back. She gets dressed. She runs by. And I just wave at her. I get back to my wife and I tell her the story. I'm like, what the heck did this girl just do? And my wife goes, well, have you heard of this person called Wim Hof? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So she tells me the story of Wim Hof, how and guys, go look up his story, but basically how he jumped into this lake and all of a sudden he had clarity through cold water. And literally I started taking cold showers. And it started with, like you said, just tiny little things where I get in the shower and I just like turn it cold for 5 seconds and turn it warm, right? And then a little bit longer and a little bit longer. And about 5 months later, I started taking cold showers. And now I only take cold showers. I don't take hot showers at all. But what you're saying is it's those little tiny steps. It's not, start taking cold showers every day. It's, dude, just do a little bit. Just add a little bit more and a little bit more. And guys, if you guys are out there seeking freedom, right? If you're looking at real estate as the journey, I've said before, real estate is a mind game, guys. And Nicholas is giving you the blueprint on how to master the mind game.
Yep.
And that mind game, it will either make you or it will destroy you. And one of the two, and being able to stay sharp is just so powerful. So
what's interesting, man, on that is on the mind game is I have a friend right now. We were just texting yesterday and he's up in Canada. He's a real estate guy and he's been doing like, $1 million deals, et cetera, and maybe multi-million-dollar deals. But right now they're doing just on their investment side, $50 million deal right now where they're building, and it could turn into, they bought land to do $250 million total, or just 4 other ones. So for 200 million plus the 50 million right now. And they're developing this huge thing. And he told me on the phone yesterday, he said, what's so crazy? He was like, the process isn't that different than my $1 million deals that I did. He's like, it's just bigger. He's like, it's so weird how it's this mental block that like 50 million or 250 million, that seems like absurd, right? I joke around with him all the time. I'm like, bro, like you're doing this huge thing. Like this is crazy. And he's like, it's not really that different. And it's wild to me that one deal can be an entire huge family legacy for them forever. Or you can flip a $30,000 or, rent out a $30,000 home in the middle of Wisconsin and have to rehab and build and do all this stuff. And I was like, bro, that is such a good topic on what you're talking about with mindset, is that the process was very similar, but the mindset of the person who can go flip a hotel in New York City, like a Donald Trump craziness, like that just was like, oh, I'm just going to redo this whole hotel. It's like, what? Right. Like don't you want to start small? But that's the thing with all the people here is they don't have to. Success doesn't happen incrementally. It
Yeah.
happens exponentially when you grow your capacity, and then you grow fast, and then you're going to plateau. It's called taking land and fortifying it. And the thing is with someone like you, they can accelerate their growth where it doesn't have to be a slow process. It's just like do the right things on the right deal, open up that mindset and go for it, right?
Yeah.
With good guidance, obviously, as well.
So I'm reading this book. I'm actually nearly done now. It's What It Takes by Stephen Schiffman. He's the owner of BlackRock. And one of the things he says is make sure the thing you want to give your life to is worth committing your life to. Right? Like he talks about a lot of people will settle for this small little thing. And he's like, whether you do something massive or something small, the hard work and the pain is the same, right? Just like what you're saying, $1 million deal, $100,000 deal, and a $50 million deal. All of it, there might be nuances that are different, but the struggle to get through it is very similar.
Yep.
All the way through. So that's amazing. So at the end of these shows, I like to do kind of like a speed round of value, okay, to finish this out. Now, it's usually around real estate, but I've tweaked it a little bit for you, and especially with our conversation to knock it out. So, are you ready to jump in?
I mean, I guess so, bro. I'm as ready as I can be.
All right. So, the question I normally ask is, what is the number one thing that you track in your business? That is like if you were on an island and you could only look at one number, what would that be?
Yeah, it'd be critical numbers. It'd be new customers in the door of our number one. We have something called critical number that we track in our company, and we know if that metric moves, which for us is new customers in a certain item, which is our core offer. Where do people start? As long as that number is moving, then everything is fine. And I believe in business, money is oxygen of a business. If you can't make money, you're on life support.
That's right.
Money cures all in a business. And so for us, it's new customers in the door is the number one metric that we're tracking all the time.
Nice. Money, I've said this before, money is like air. You don't realize you need it until you don't have any. Right? Just like what you said. Yep. All right, cool. What book would you recommend to someone who's getting into business? Usually I say real estate, but someone who's getting into business or is trying to level up. What's a book that changed your life or a resource that you could recommend?
Yeah, so things really shifted for me because they're going to have education from you. And when I read Think and Grow Rich, and I really got clear on the amount of money that I wanted to make so that I could chunk it down into those numbers. How many flips do you have to do? How many rentals do you need? How many doors do you need? If we don't have that metric, then we don't know how to build a plan. Like we really don't know what we need to hit by when. And there's something so big about that in business where you can really get clear on that. And I believe Think and Grow Rich does a phenomenal job at you putting down a goal of specificity in the amount of money that you want to make. So Think and Grow Rich, I read it 3 times in the first year that I got it. And I did exactly what it said. And I literally hit the exact number that I was looking to hit. So I highly recommend that if they already have the real estate style education of what they should do, but they're just not, they have no urgency.
Yeah.
And in this game, urgency is like, it's everything. Do you have urgency in the things that you're doing, the tone of voice in your actions daily, and the goals that you have? Like, I know exactly what numbers we're trying to hit for the next year. So I know how to plan my day accordingly. But if I have nowhere to go in all day to get there, well, then I'm never going to get there.
Dude, that's super, super powerful. The next one, you talked about community and the power and importance of community. So what is something that you do to intentionally network with the next level? I know one of the biggest frustrations that I had is I didn't know how to get around people at the next level, right? It was only when I realized I could actually pay to play that I was able to get there. For guys who are out there who just have this burning desire, they've made that decision. They've decided, you know what, this is the way that I want to do, but they feel lonely and they're by themselves. What can they do to intentionally network and get around those bigger people who will impact them?
Yeah, there's 2 investments that you can make. It's time and money. You'll need to use both of them always, but relationships will always cost those 2 things. And I say cost because it sounds cooler, but they'll always be worth it. So it's like, do you want to work your way in or do you want to pay your way in? So right now, if there's a group of 1,000 people, I want to pay the 25 to 50,000 bucks to figure out who like the 30 to 50 out of them are actually serious about growing and want to grow together for a year. Whereas if not, then I'm going to go to the event and I'm going to try to find those people. So like my first mentor that I got around, I like drove all the way up to Orange County from San Diego just to have lunch with them. I didn't even have money for lunch. I drove my mutual connection all around the city all day. And then that mentor texts me one night and says, I'm surfing in the middle of the night up north, like an hour and a half away if you want to come. I never surf there. I thought, what if tons of people get invited? And what if I don't even talk to them? And I ended up being the only one who showed up. And I got stuck in the ocean for 5 hours in the middle of the night. Like, I thought I was dead. Never been there before. It was illegal. And I ended up traveling to like 3 different countries with him as he went on a speaking tour. And it was all because I was like willing to say yes and show up while everyone else thought of every reason of how it could go wrong. I made a decision to show up and think about how it could go right. And I think that while 97% of people minimum don't do that, maybe even 1% don't do that, you really stand out if you do it. So it's thinking about it that way. I've had many times where people want to go out to get food or something, and I had a good friend one time that if I didn't pay for his food, he didn't come eat. So one day I decided I'm going to stop paying for his food every time, see what he does, and we didn't hang out for a while. And what I recognized through that is that the investment for food wasn't worth the investment in the relationship.
Yeah.
And so I always try to get around people that find more value from the relationship than the money invested, because it always takes money, gas, car,
Yep.
maintenance, lunch, whether it's Chipotle or it's freaking Wolfgang Puck. Like it all takes an investment of time and money. So figure out what assets you have right now and how you can leverage them to get inside the room with super high level people. And I've done that. Like I've invested the time side tons. And so I would say that those are the 2 different ways. Who's the mutual connection you have that has the connection as well?
Yeah.
Like, how do I get around the one guy or one girl that I know that has the in?
That's really powerful. You know, it's funny that you mentioned that because one of the best mentors I had, I found a guy, we were connecting, we did a couple of deals together. And I found out he grew up playing Magic the Gathering. And I was like, okay, cool. So we started talking. I'm kind of a nerd too, right? And so I ended up going out and buying him a whole bunch of Magic cards. Like, I spent probably like $1,000, right? Buying Magic cards, putting together some stuff. I bought myself some stuff and I was like, hey, I'll play with you. He's like, really? And we started playing. Literally, we got together and me and him, and he had his wife come, and we just started playing Magic the Gathering. And we probably did this for probably 6 or 8 months. We ended up launching an education group together on real estate. I helped him launch his software. That got into me learning about what this camera stuff is all about, right? And this whole game, because I found out that he liked Magic the Gathering and we just play, right? He was just like, it was almost like a nostalgic thing for him just to hang out with someone. And I had one-on-one with this guy who had a successful real estate business.
Yeah.
Dude, I love what you just said, because you can be outside the box.
Yeah. And we call that indirect relationship building. Direct relationship building is I go to you and I go, hey man, tell me your deepest, darkest secrets. And you're like, bro, I don't even know you. But if I come up to you and we have a commonality, we can build a foundation of a relationship on indirect things. Like you said, like Jay Abraham, he teaches at all of Tony Robbins, like platinum 100K masterminds. Well, I got invited to a dinner with him, and then he invited me to actually come out to his office. But I wanted to interview this guy. And so what did I do? He wouldn't get back to me. So I literally find his assistant and we buy her like a spa package because she handles his calendar. So she does everything, man, gets us on his calendar. We get to build a relationship with him. He ended up mentoring us for a year, my wife and I, just for a favor. We couldn't even pay for it. It was like astronomical at the time. He was like, listen, I know that I'm way too big for you, basically. He's like, but do me this favor and let's do this. And it was like using creative things. One of my business partners, I heard that he played first-person shooter video games. So I was like, huh, you're telling me that this guy who's done $200 million before 30 years old jumps on after work sometimes and shoots, like ruins little kids' nights, basically, as a 30-year-old. And I was like, cool. I literally built a $4,000 computer and was like, I'll do it. I'll do it. Let's do it. And we built like a fun little friendship doing it. And now we're business partners on 2 different projects. And it was from an indirect thing that kind of built our relationship, which is why I built the brotherhood in general. Is like faith, business, family, fitness, like different levels, right? Not just
Yeah.
can we do a deal together? And if not, we're like, okay, on to the next one. You can't benefit me. I don't benefit you. Like it's kind of shallow.
Yeah.
So thinking of those is really, really cool. And you'd be surprised at how many people can connect to who you naturally are. You know,
Yeah.
it's like I have a friend who's a pro pickleball player, and then I just met a guy who manages $550 million of a family's wealth that's looking to make investments, and like he plays pickleball for fun. And like that's the connection. We're all going to play pickleball. I'm like, okay. Like what is unproductive is mostly based on the environment and the people that you're with. Like when I first started business, I was like, no drinking, no bars, no hanging out with stupid people, no fun, no games. And then all of a sudden I'm like, well, if Warren Buffett invited me to like a cigar lounge, that'd be different than drinking with my buddies. So is it the drinks or is it the intention and the people that I'm with? Is it the restaurants? Oh, don't eat out, right? This is what everyone will say to be wealthy. Don't eat out. That's a waste of money. I'm like, well, is it who you're eating out with that's a waste of
Right.
money? The intention of it. Is playing pickleball a waste of time? Well, I don't know. There's like over $1 billion of managed wealth there and super high level guys that can grow together. So is it the activity or is it the intention and the people that you're doing the activity with? You know, outside of the moral and ethical terrible things. I
Yeah.
think that I think that sometimes we overlook that and you become very one-dimensional in your relationships if all you do is work. No one knows who you are. They have no other touch points, no other way to connect with you. And if you show more of that, it gives people a reason to connect.
Man, that's really powerful. Um, two more
I'll
questions.
go quick, I promise.
Yeah, two more questions. One, you mentioned personal development.
Yep.
You've obviously connected with a lot of guys. How much do you spend per year in personal development? Getting part of these groups, reading, courses, all of that. What is Nicholas Barely? What does he do?
Including taking people to dinner and stuff like that to learn?
Yeah, including taking people's like money you
Yeah,
invest
yeah.
in that.
Probably like 130,000 a year. If I get to put that in the mix as well, I'd like to. I have a pretty big food budget to learn from people.
Okay.
You know, in masterminds right now, I'm investing a little bit over 55K a year
Okay.
personally. And I always have done that for about 7 years now, and it's incrementally gone up. Um, but one of my mentors this year, I'll pay about 350K. So I don't know if that
Dude, that
also
no,
counts
that
as well.
it's awesome because the trend from this podcast, and the reason, guys, I'm asking this, and I constantly ask this, is for you guys to see what other people who are one step, two steps ahead of where you're at, what they're investing and what their journey looks like. And so
Well,
that's why I ask
and
is because
realize
it's
this,
very
bro. Like, I have to put this out as a caveat. Like 8 years ago, I went to a business event and they charged $35 for parking, and I dropped off my wife and I sat on the curb in my car waiting for the whole event for it to get over to save $35 because I was like, they're not going to get me. Like, I'm not going to spend $35 for parking. I knew exactly what I did to make $35. I was carpet cleaning. Like
yeah,
that was a full job that I did for that money.
yeah,
And so I understand it's just like success leaves clues. And if it was so easy to know why people invest in themselves, every unsuccessful person would do it. That's why they buy lottery tickets, because they know there's a chance they could win the lottery. So they usually buy things that are too good to be true rather than the things that successful people actually do to make money. So I just had to
yeah.
throw that out there.
Man, that's really powerful. All right, the last one. If you were to lose everything today, if your business was to collapse, um, you were to spin out of control for the economy or whatever reason, with what you know now, what would you do? Like, how would you rebuild? What would be your kind of blueprint?
Yeah, first thing I would do is I go sell someone's product for them. So
Okay.
that's the first thing I would do because I know I can make probably 20K a month in the first month if I just sold someone else I know's product well, as long as I had good lead flow. Like, if you know how to sell, you'll never go hungry. I think to me, the number one skill set that you can grow as a business person is the ability to sell, because inside of that's the ability to communicate. And it's the messages that are communicated well, like Jesus walking the earth. He communicated his message, sold everyone into it. And there's like 3 billion people that believe it. And he had no social media. You know, it's like, that's how you get a message. So at first I would sell for someone else first. The second thing that I would do is I would build my credibility by, I'd create my own product. If I knew what I know now, bro, I'd create a product real quick, and I would go get a big level speaker to do a small little meetup or a Zoom call. And I'd get people to attend that Zoom call by getting the big level speaker, because they don't know me, right? I lost everything.
Yep.
And I'd get the big speaker by promising the attendees. So I'd use them against each other. And as soon as I get on stage with that speaker or present it, everyone's going to look at me at the same level as that speaker. I'll have instant credibility. And now that becomes my audience by leveraging their audience. And I would do that in a second. I would get that done in the first 30 days. I would already be able to follow up with those people because they look at me at the same level as whoever your top level person is, because I put together the event, and I know how to pitch and sell from stage. That's how I've built the company. So, but even if I had, it's hard because everyone's skill sets are different. But ultimately for me, if you can build a skill set to sell, then you can always make money, because there's always an opportunity for that. And from there, I'd build my credibility again by leveraging those two things, by building a small event. I just launched a company with literally we just did, let me see. Like in the last month, we just did in education, like around 600K in this last month. Like 200K of it was collected. So some of it is paid out over the year.
Yep.
And it's by serving a small amount of people really, really well with a really good solution. And so if I can think of that in a new context of getting a leader, they don't know who I am. Like if Warren Buffett is, I always say, if he's stripped naked, left in the desert with nothing, like he'll always be wealthy again, because it's really about his skill set and his knowledge. It's not about his anything else.
Yeah.
Like he knows, even if it's connections, he knows how to build those connections again. That's always say the best investment you can make is in your skill set. It's not even the real estate investment that you make. Like if they had a chance between investing in a property on the ocean in Orange County for 50 grand or investing in education from you, I would advise them to go get educated, because you flip a house once, like what's the difference between that and winning the lottery? Like most people that win the lottery go broke in 3 years because they don't understand how to produce money, keep money, and grow money, and don't have any capacity to do it. So if you can do that, there's a saying that says if you take a king and you reduce him to a pauper status in a kingdom, he'll always rise up to be king again. If you take a pauper and you make him king of the kingdom, he'll reduce it to rubble. So how do I get the identity of a king? It doesn't matter on situation, because realize when the king's put in the pauper situation, he still knows that he's a king. Still has the same info, same everything. So he'll rise up in a position of authority again. So how do I become the person, not just get put in the situation?
Dude, that's so powerful. That's so powerful. I really appreciate you coming on, man. If people wanted to connect with you and reach out to what you have going on, how could they do that?
Yeah, so Nicholas Bailey on Instagram, like I said, happy to send people some books. We talked about nicholasbailey.com/ebook for if someone just wants it right now. That's the best place to connect. I also have a community for men that are Christian businessmen that's called the Kings Brotherhood on Facebook. And that's a place where 5,800 of us connect and collaborate and learn from each other, and can talk about things that we don't want to just post all over the internet. It's a simple niche of people that's really, really fun.
That's awesome. Guys, we call this Forge to Win for a reason, because we want to bring on some of the best guys. And what you guys learned today, go back and rewatch it two, three, 4 times with what Nicholas said, because there's a lot of nuggets in here. Real estate is a mind game. And if you guys are seeking that style of life where you're able to pursue freedom and be financially independent, some of the stuff he talked about today is absolutely game changer. So go back, watch that. And until next time, guys, peace.